immediately went into the trenches together.
Yeah.
Right out of the gate, like 6 months into dating. So now 7 years later, when you have a little bit of breathing space.
Luxury turned to humiliation in a matter of seconds when whispers inside a gleaming boutique spiraled into a headline no one saw coming. Shoppers froze, cameras lifted, and security stepped in as Meghan Markle reportedly faced an unprecedented ban from Chanel stores worldwide. What unfolded next was not the polished poise the public associates with royalty, but a tense confrontation that insiders say left staff stunned. So, how did a routine visit erupt into a moment so explosive it was captured on camera and shared everywhere? The day the doors wouldn't open. At exactly 3:41 p.m. on February 7, 2026, shoppers along North Rodeo Drive slowed their steps as Meghan Markle approached the glass entrance of the Chanel flagship in Beverly Hills. Dressed in a flowing ivory cape coat and dark sunglasses, she moved with calm confidence, expecting the quiet courtesy luxury houses usually extend to familiar faces. Instead, 2 security guards stood firmly in her path, their expressions unreadable. No assistant rushed forward. No manager appeared with apologies. One guard delivered a short message that changed everything. They had been instructed not to admit her. Across the Atlantic, weeks earlier in December 2025, a decision had already been sealed inside Chanel's historic headquarters on Rue Cambon in Paris. According to fashion insiders, the ruling was not emotional or sudden. It was deliberate. A rare internal protocol, quietly known among executives as a final withdrawal, had been activated. The measure, reserved for the most serious reputational concerns, meant complete separation. No boutique visits, no invitations to shows, no private previews, silence in place of explanation. Witnesses outside the store that afternoon said Meghan paused mid-text, staring at her phone as if the scene might reset. From the direction of Dior's storefront nearby, a staff member noticed her pacing and making a quick call. Within 20 minutes, Prince Harry arrived, his hood pulled low. He spoke briefly with security, but the answer did not change. There would be no entry, no exception. Inside fashion circles, rumors had been building for months. Leaked emails from 2023 reportedly showed Meghan requesting co-creative recognition for a limited edition handbag project. Former staff members described tense exchanges and disagreements over control of messaging. Chanel's brand integrity team compiled a detailed file, weighing public controversies against corporate values. By the time Bruno Pavlovsky, president of fashion at Chanel, signed the formal motion alongside senior leadership, the outcome was considered irreversible. Back on Rodeo Drive, phones were already recording. Within minutes, short clips began spreading online, capturing fragments of the tense exchange. Chanel offered no statement. Industry veterans say that when the house remains silent, the silence itself is the answer. For a figure once praised as a modern-style icon, the moment felt surreal. Luxury thrives on image, and image depends on alignment. On that bright California afternoon, the unspoken message was unmistakable. In the rare world of high fashion, access can disappear as quietly as it was once granted. The whispers of the mood board war had been quietly building across Paris, but did this discreet atelier visit truly ignite a fashion upheaval? Or was it merely the first spark in a storm the industry couldn't ignore? Let's find out. The blacklist that shook Paris. The room went quiet long before anyone realized history was being rewritten. What was meant to be a discreet visit inside a private atelier in Paris soon became a turning point that would ripple across Europe's most guarded fashion houses. By February 2026, the confrontation was public. But the real story had been unfolding in whispers, behind gilded doors and guarded guest lists. In early spring 2023, fashion insiders were already murmuring about what they called the mood board war. An ambitious proposal for an Owl X capsule collaboration with Chanel had sparked cautious curiosity at first. The idea promised freshness, cross-cultural energy, and a modern narrative. Yet beneath the surface, tension simmered. Chanel is not simply a label. It is an institution built on legacy, discipline, and control. When creative suggestions began to feel like attempts to rewrite that legacy, enthusiasm cooled. Meetings ended politely, but momentum stalled. The capsule quietly dissolved before it ever reached fabric. Then came December 5th, 2024. In a private Chanel atelier in Paris, a visit arranged through an American stylist shifted from informal to unsettling. Introducing herself as a creative partner tied to the RQL initiative, she requested access to sketches from the upcoming ME 2025 line. What followed, according to staff, felt less like collaboration and more like command. Design trims were criticized and renamed. Elements were labeled too stiff, too traditionally French. There were even comparisons to the sweeping creative authority once associated with Karl Lagerfeld. For archivists and long-serving staff, the moment landed hard. Chanel's identity is sacred, shaped by decades of discipline. It's a house, almost a temple, one insider later explained. Temples don't adjust their foundations for visitors. Within days, her name vanished from the guest list of the Métiers d'Art show scheduled in Manchester. The message was subtle but firm. The consequences stretched further. Quiet memos circulated beyond Paris. At LVMH, strategists reportedly labeled her a Tier 3 brand risk, a rare classification that signals reputational caution. Other luxury giants, including Dior, Balmain, and Bottega Veneta, took note. So when February 2026 delivered a visible rupture, insiders were not surprised. The clash was not born overnight. It was the result of small moments, creative disagreements, guarded traditions, and the fine line between influence and intrusion. In an industry where image is everything and legacy is protected at all costs, even a single misstep can echo far beyond the runway. Silk, power, and a proposal that shook Paris. By February 2026, whispers inside the fashion capitals had grown into open disbelief. What many once dismissed as an overconfident pitch had turned into one of the most talked-about standoffs in modern luxury history. At the center stood Meghan Markle and the legendary House of Chanel, two powerful names from very different worlds, now locked in a quiet but fierce battle over image, legacy, and control. The spark had been struck much earlier. In May 2023, Meghan and her business advisor, Vanessa Lauren, reached out to Chanel's U.S. press office through a third-party representative with fashion PR ties. The idea sounded bold, a limited-edition humanitarian collection that would blend the heritage of Coco Chanel with Meghan's modern message of female empowerment. To her team, it was visionary. To Chanel, it was risky. Then came June 14, 2023, in New York City, a meeting that insiders still speak about in lowered voices. What was scheduled as a routine discussion quickly became something else. Meghan reportedly arrived with a polished presentation titled Reimagine Chanel, From Exclusivity to Empathy. The theme challenged the very foundation of the brand. She proposed subtle changes to the iconic interlocking C logo for a special line of silk accessories and suggested replacing traditional runway models with real women, positioning herself as both face and narrator of the campaign. It didn't stop there. Among the ideas was a series of eco-friendly handbags named after influential royal women, including a striking design inspired by Diana, Princess of Wales. When asked about formal permission to use Diana's name, Meghan allegedly implied that honoring a legacy did not require approval. For Chanel's executives, that moment shifted the tone of the room. Days later, images believed to be from Meghan's creative mood board surfaced online. Archival photos of Diana in Chanel suits appeared beside modern black and white shots of Meghan in similar silhouettes. One slide reportedly carried a dramatic tagline linking grief, heritage, and glamour. Within Chanel's legal and ethics teams, alarms sounded. The concern was not just creative direction, it was the suggestion that the house's carefully guarded history could be reshaped to support someone else's narrative. From there, what might have been a partnership turned into a silent chess match. European fashion houses quietly rallied around Chanel, determined to protect their traditions. Every public appearance, every social media post, every interview was examined for hidden meaning. By early 2026, the failed proposal had become symbolic of something larger, a clash between celebrity influence and couture discipline. In high fashion, reputation is wealth, and once the balance shifts, even the brightest spotlight can cast a very long shadow. The calm of North Rodeo Drive shattered in just 12 minutes. But what exactly triggered Chanel's unprecedented move against Meghan? And what secrets lie behind those silent security guards? Now, let's uncover the story that shook the fashion world. 12 minutes on Rodeo Drive. On February 7, 2026, the air along North Rodeo Drive in Beverly Hills carried its usual blend of sunlight and quiet luxury until it didn't. At exactly 3:41 p.m., a black Cadillac Escalade stopped outside the Chanel flagship. Meghan stepped out with calm confidence, trailed by her assistant, Greta Yu, and a young stylist, Eliza Morrow. What followed would later be whispered about inside fashion houses from Los Angeles to Paris. 12 minutes that said more than any public statement ever could. Security logs would show the moment clearly. Two long-serving guards moved toward the entrance in silent coordination. A simple sentence was delivered at the glass doors. They had been instructed not to grant access. No raised voices, no dramatic gestures, just a stillness that felt heavier than any argument. Meghan insisted there must be a mistake, referencing a standing understanding with a global director. The reply was measured and firm. There were no open arrangements. The instruction applied across regions. That phrase carried history. Nearly 3 years earlier, on June 26, 2023, Chanel's senior leadership had gathered for what insiders described as an urgent meeting in Paris. By July 1st, communication with Meghan's team at Archewell had ended. A quiet internal memo directed regional offices to disengage. No announcement was made, but the partnership many had speculated about was over before it began. Leaked emails later suggested the decision stung. One message reportedly read that she had been used for publicity, only to be shut out. Whether emotion or strategy, the response was swift. By late 2024, Chanel's name faded from interviews and appearances. Instead, Meghan turned to Valentino, Carolina Herrera, and self-portrait labels seen as more flexible, more open to celebrity energy. A former stylist from her Netflix projects hinted that the shift was personal. Proving independence became the mission. Yet every French silhouette seemed to reopen the same quiet question: was she sending the right message? Observers say the conflict reflected a deeper divide. Heritage houses like Chanel, Hermès, and Rolex build power through patience, silence, and control. Celebrity brands move through speed, headlines, and digital momentum. One French executive reportedly remarked that Chanel does not evolve through individuals. Individuals orbit Chanel. Back on Rodeo Drive, that philosophy stood firm behind tinted glass. For the first minute, Meghan remained composed. Then she stepped aside, phone in hand, pacing near the velvet rope. Witnesses claimed she was on a call to Prince Harry in Montecito, her voice steady but sharp. Inside, staff followed protocol laid out days earlier. Do not engage, do not escalate, hold the line. 12 minutes later, she returned to the Escalade. The doors closed softly. Traffic resumed. Yet in those brief moments, a years-long struggle between personal ambition and institutional legacy had played out in perfect silence. The memo was clear, global, and unavoidable. But what drove Meghan to confront closed doors anyway, recording every moment for the world to see? Could this act spark consequences no one anticipated? Let's uncover the full story. 12 minutes that echoed across Paris. The message was brief, clinical, and impossible to misread. In an internal memo dated February 1, 2026, a senior executive at Chanel's American division placed Meghan Markle in a category labeled Tier 1, non-engaged, a status confirmed by Paris headquarters. It was not a local misunderstanding. It was global. In the coded language of couture, it meant one thing: the doors would stay closed. Yet hours later, outside the Beverly Hills boutique, Meghan stood facing those very doors. At 15:47, Witnesses say she lifted her phone and began recording herself. Her voice shifted between calm reflection and sharp frustration. She gestured toward the entrance, as if pointing to a symbol larger than glass and gold handles. According to insiders, the clip was quickly sent to her PR strategist, Andrea Fielding, carrying a bold subject line that hinted at escalation if necessary. Then came the moment that startled even seasoned observers. A stylist, speaking anonymously, claimed Meghan publicly called out a regional director by name, accusing him of corporate intimidation. Passers-by slowed, cameras tilted, but inside, nothing moved. No manager stepped forward, no statement appeared. Silence became the answer. At 15:53, Prince Harry arrived, cap low over his eyes, jacket half-zipped, looking weary but determined. He touched her elbow gently and spoke just 5 quiet words. "We need to go now." After a brief pause, she nodded. They walked away. The boutique doors never opened. By 21:12 that evening, an internal Slack message circulated through Chanel's senior client network worldwide. Staff were instructed to refer inquiries to standard protocol and avoid outside comment. The position, it stated, remained unchanged. What followed was even more telling. By the next morning, other powerhouses, Dior and Balenciaga among them, quietly reviewed their own access lists. Across Paris, from historic salons to discreet offices overlooking the Seine, executives reached the same conclusion. Invitations once extended would no longer be renewed. In haute couture, rejection rarely comes with raised voices. It comes with absence. When a name vanishes from call sheets along Rue Cambon and beyond, the message is permanent. There was no dramatic statement, no public apology, no official rebuke, only a stillness, heavy with tradition. Those 12 minutes outside a boutique in Beverly Hills were brief, but in Paris, where reputation is currency and discretion is law, the echo lingered far longer than the silence. Even Paris's elite, usually untouchable, faced whispers of disruption. But why was Meghan Markle suddenly shut out from the city's most secretive fashion circles? How did the luxury world truly react? Let's find out. Silence in silk. How Paris turned its back on Meghan. Exclusive intelligence from a senior figure within France's luxury circle reveals a decision that sent quiet shockwaves through Paris. On February 9, 2026, a discreet round table gathered under the authority of Kering, the powerhouse behind some of fashion's most guarded houses. Present were leading voices tied to LVMH, owner of Dior and Louis Vuitton, alongside representatives connected to Chanel and Hermès. No press release followed. No official minutes surfaced, yet what emerged from a leaked summary was unmistakable. Meghan Markle's access to the upper tiers of Paris fashion had been quietly cut off. Guest lists were revised, showroom entries flagged, press packages redirected. The language used was said to be precise and restrained, but the meaning was firm. Chanel had already drawn its line, insiders say, and others followed without delay. Dior, once rumored to be considering her for a formal partnership, reportedly advised its teams to step back from any wardrobe requests or ambassador talks. At Givenchy, the label behind her 2018 royal wedding gown, designed by Claire Waite Keller, there was only careful silence. By the time the provisional invitations for Paris Fashion Week scheduled for March 4th to 11th, 2026 circulated, her name was nowhere to be found. No front row placement, no backstage passes, no glossy photo calls. For someone who once moved easily through elite fashion spaces, even appearing comfortably near figures like Anna Wintour, the absence spoke loudly. Behind the scenes, efforts to repair the narrative accelerated. Her agency, SME Strategies, reportedly floated multiple comeback ideas in early February: a reconciliation profile with Harper's Bazaar, a sustainability-themed digital cover for InStyle, even a podcast appearance with Stella McCartney. There was talk of a Marie Claire UK feature centered on renewal, and a proposed TED-style address titled Reclaiming Creative Space. Editors, however, remained distant. One Paris-based publication summarized the hesitation in 2 words. French media commentary sharpened. Le Figaro suggested that silence from major houses spoke volumes. Gala described the shift as a dramatic fall from influence. Even Vanity Fair France questioned whether disruption had been mistaken for dominance. In couture, image is currency, but access is power. When invitations stop arriving, the message is rarely shouted. It is whispered through closed doors and unreturned calls. And in Paris, when those doors close, the echo can linger longer than applause. Even the glitz and glamour that once followed her couldn't shield Meghan Markle from rejection. But what did Chanel's cold shoulder truly mean for her influence? And how would the legal storm that followed change everything? Let's see. Inside Meghan's high-stakes fashion fallout. For Meghan Markle, once praised as a rule-breaker who could bend global fashion to her will, the silence from Paris felt louder than any headline. When one of the world's most guarded luxury houses, Chanel, chose distance over diplomacy, the message was unmistakable, and this time, influence alone could not reopen the door. Within hours of a tense encounter in Beverly Hills on February 8, 2026, her legal machinery began to move. By the next day, her longtime attorney, Jonathan Y., was on a strategic call with partners from Levin and O'Donnell LLP in New York. The internal code name was Project Salvage. Draft documents explored bold claims, interference with business prospects, emotional distress, discrimination under California's Unruh Civil Rights Act, and even arguments tied loosely to international commercial standards in Paris. The language was forceful. The evidence, according to outside observers, was thin. A retired California judge privately described the proposal as passionate but unlikely to survive scrutiny. Fashion houses, after all, are not bound to personal alliances. As one analyst put it bluntly, discretion is not discrimination. By February 10th, the courtroom path had quietly faded. At 11:17 a.m. Pacific Time on February 9th, an email left the inbox of Archewell's communications director, Nadia Campbell, addressed to more than 40 editors across fashion and culture media. The subject line hinted at patterns of exclusion in elite spaces, references to past tabloid battles in Britain, and the painful royal exit were woven into the pitch. Only a single outlet offered a sympathetic platform. Inside Archewell, nerves frayed. A departing staff member later described the mood as urgent and unsettled. Private messages suggested Meghan wanted a stronger humanitarian framing, even invoking comparisons to her late mother-in-law, Diana, Princess of Wales. "Remind them who I am," one message reportedly urged. Then came the industry's quiet counterstroke, an internal note dated January 28, 2026, written by Bruno Pavlovsky, president of Chanel's fashion division, surfaced on a restricted trade server. Its tone was calm, almost clinical. Silence, it said, protects the house. The decision regarding was strategic, not personal. In that moment, the narrative shifted. This was no longer a celebrity dispute. It was tradition to close ranks. From Los Angeles to Paris, brand advisors whispered caution. Headlines followed, but contracts did not. And in the world behind velvet ropes, reputation, once questioned, rarely finds easy redemption. Even as Meghan's once strong presence seemed unshakable, everything began to unravel almost overnight. But was this sudden shift a sign of miscalculation, or had the public's affection quietly turned? How did the world respond? Let's find out. The week the spotlight turned cold. In a matter of days, the balance shifted. What had once looked like bold strategy suddenly felt like miscalculation, and the carefully managed image began to thin under pressure. Legal warnings were issued with confidence, yet almost overnight, the atmosphere around Meghan shifted from attention to avoidance. The inbox at Archewell swelled, but not with opportunity. Invitations that once arrived without effort quietly disappeared. Podcast hosts paused. Fashion stylists reconsidered. Public relations teams updated their internal lists, placing her name in categories reserved for reputational risk. The turning point traced back to the tense encounter in Beverly Hills earlier in 2026, but the consequences traveled much farther than Rodeo Drive. When whispers spread that Chanel had effectively shut its doors, it sent a signal through an industry that prizes legacy over loudness. In fashion, influence is measured in decades, not trending moments. One executive summed it up bluntly: When access is forced, the exit is already being prepared. The impact extended beyond couture houses in Paris. Inside Netflix, discussions reportedly shifted tone. A documentary concept tied to royal history and style once floated by her company, RQL Productions, lost momentum. Perception, executives said privately, brands hesitate when a figure's influence feels unstable. Soon after, Spotify quietly stepped back from tentative plans. What began as a fashion dispute evolved into a broader reassessment of her public value. Meanwhile, life in Montecito grew noticeably quieter. Neighbors observed fewer visitors. Calls were not returned as quickly. The social circle that once felt vibrant narrowed without announcement or drama. Institutional isolation, subtle and powerful, proved harder to counter than open criticism. It was not loud condemnation, but the absence of endorsement that carried weight. Public sentiment echoed the private chill. In Canada, where support had surged in 2020, recent polling showed a sharp decline among women aged 25 to 45. A Toronto firm reported favorability dropping by over 40% within weeks. The feedback was consistent. Empowerment, they felt, must align with humility. As options narrowed, talk of relocation surfaced. Canada, Australia, even Switzerland officially framed as educational or lifestyle exploration. Yet behind those explanations lay a deeper truth. The battle was no longer about access to elite fashion circles. It was about relevance in a system that decides quietly, collectively, and often permanently who remains inside. The Chanel boutique on Rue Cambon gleamed under winter sunlight, yet its closed doors spoke louder than fashion. What did this by invitation only sign mean for Meghan Markle, and how would she react? Let's find out. The quiet closing of a modern fairy tale. On February 10th, a single photograph drifted through the inboxes of Paris fashion editors. It showed the polished entrance of the Chanel boutique on Rue Cambon, glowing under a pale winter sun. The glass doors were shut. A small sign rested behind them. By invitation only. It looked harmless, almost elegant. Yet in certain circles it spoke volumes. For Meghan Markle, that quiet image captured a much larger shift in perception. The gap between the carefully curated brand she presents and the behavior critics claim they observe has become increasingly hard to ignore. In Hollywood, partnerships that once seemed automatic now require careful vetting and screening. In Paris, doors that once opened effortlessly for celebrities are now reserved for heritage, loyalty, and long-standing reputations. Insiders reveal that 9 prestigious fashion houses declined collaboration talks in recent months. Calls went unanswered, and pitches were met with polite but firm silence. The consequences are not abstract. By late January, 2 key donors had stepped back from the Archewell Foundation, citing strategic refocusing. Her lifestyle venture, including the much-discussed Jam line, remains stalled, with unsold inventory reportedly sitting in storage units in Santa Barbara. Production plans hover in uncertainty. Public support from high-profile allies like Oprah Winfrey and Gayle King has noticeably quieted. Even longtime associates such as Serena Williams and Tyler Perry have offered no visible defense. Across the Atlantic, a different kind of conversation has been unfolding. Within extended circles near Windsor, there are whispers that Prince Harry has explored limited quiet re-engagement with royal institutions, nothing grand, perhaps charity appearances or legacy commemorations, but the condition, relayed through figures like Princess Anne, is firm. Any path would be for him alone. No joint return, no shared platform. The message is described as respectful but clear. Friends say this possibility has left him conflicted. The so-called Chanel moment reportedly struck him deeply. It offered a sharp lesson in how quickly influence can cool when institutions decide to step back. In elite fashion and royal life alike, access is rarely restored once withdrawn. At that level, reputation moves slowly, but decisions, once made, tend to hold. Speculation about Meghan's next move varies. Some predict a memoir. Others imagine a pivot toward advocacy or politics. A few suggest a retreat from public life, shaped less by strategy and more by exhaustion. For now, she remains in California, supported by a smaller circle and facing a quieter stage. The image from Rue Cambon still lingers, not dramatic, not loud, just a closed door and a simple sign. In worlds built on heritage and memory, exclusion rarely needs explanation. It simply exists. And sometimes, that silence speaks louder than any headline ever could. So what do you think triggered Meghan Markle's shocking meltdown and led Chanel to ban her from all stores? We'd like to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to like and share.